Silence makes people uncomfortable. In fact, for many people, silence is more intimidating than confrontation, more intimidating than criticism, even more intimidating than conflict itself. Because when someone is silent, you lose information, you lose certainty, you lose control over what they are thinking. And the human mind hates uncertainty. This is why a quiet person can walk into a room and instantly change its atmosphere. Not because they demand attention, but because they don't. And once you understand the psychology behind silence, you begin to see why some of the most powerful people in the world speak the least. Silence creates uncertainty. Human beings are constantly reading each other. Facial expressions, tone of voice, body language, words. We use these signals to predict behavior and feel safe in social situations. But silence interrupts that process. When someone speaks openly and constantly, they become easy to understand, easy to predict, easy to categorize. But when someone remains quiet, the mind has fewer clues to work with. And that creates uncertainty. Questions begin appearing automatically. What are they thinking? Do they agree? Do they dislike me? Are they judging me? The silence itself may mean nothing. Yet people begin creating stories to fill the gap. Because uncertainty creates psychological tension. And tension naturally attracts attention. People project their fears into silence. One of the most fascinating things about silence is that it acts like a mirror. When people don't know what a quiet person is thinking, they often project their own fears onto them. An insecure person may assume judgment. An anxious person may assume rejection. A guilty person may assume criticism. A narcissistic person may assume disapproval. The silent person hasn't said anything, yet everyone around them is creating their own interpretation. This is why silence often feels powerful. Not because silence contains answers, but because people fill silence with their own emotions. And what they project often reveals more about themselves than about the quiet person. Silence signals emotional control. Most people react quickly. They defend themselves immediately, explain themselves immediately, respond emotionally, argue emotionally, justify emotionally. But silence interrupts impulsive behavior. When someone remains calm instead of reacting, it signals emotional discipline. And emotional discipline is rare. People expect reactions. They expect emotional responses. They expect visible frustration. So when someone remains composed, it becomes difficult to influence them. This is why calm individuals often appear intimidating. Not because they are aggressive, but because they appear difficult to control. And people naturally respect what they cannot easily manipulate. Silence removes social validation. Many conversations are not really about communication. They are about validation, approval, recognition, attention. People speak because they want responses, agreement, acknowledgement. But silence removes that reward. When someone refuses to immediately validate another person's words, it creates discomfort, especially for people who depend heavily on external approval. Notice how some individuals become nervous around quiet people. They start talking more, explaining more, filling every pause, because silence forces them to operate without reassurance. And for someone addicted to validation, that feels psychologically threatening. Quiet people are harder to manipulate. Manipulation depends on information. The more someone reveals, the easier they become to influence. Their insecurities, their fears, their emotional triggers, their weaknesses. But quiet people often reveal less. They observe more than they speak. They listen more than they explain. And this creates a problem for manipulative individuals. Because manipulation becomes difficult when information is limited. You cannot easily control someone whose emotional state remains hidden. You cannot easily pressure someone who does not constantly react. This is why emotionally manipulative people often become frustrated around quiet individuals. Silence limits access, and limited access reduces control. Modern society fears silence. Today, silence has become increasingly rare. Every moment is filled with stimulation, notifications, videos, music, conversations, scrolling, noise. People rarely spend time alone with their thoughts anymore. As a result, silence itself has become uncomfortable, because silence forces self-reflection. And self-reflection exposes things many people spend their lives avoiding: fear, insecurity, loneliness, regret, uncertainty. This is why some people instinctively avoid quiet environments. Silence removes distraction, and without distraction, you are left face to face with yourself. For many people, that is far more intimidating than any conversation. True confidence is often quiet. There is a reason genuinely confident people rarely need to dominate every room. They do not need constant attention, constant recognition, constant validation, because confidence built internally does not depend on external noise. Quiet confidence creates a different type of presence. Calm, grounded, controlled. It does not compete for attention. And ironically, that is often what attracts attention naturally. People notice individuals who remain composed when everyone else is reacting. People remember individuals who speak carefully instead of constantly, because restraint creates contrast, and contrast creates impact. This is why the quietest person in the room is often more memorable than the loudest. Silence intimidates people because silence removes certainty. It removes easy answers, easy labels, easy predictions. And when certainty disappears, people begin projecting their own fears into the empty space. That is why silence feels powerful. Not because silence is aggressive, but because silence creates mystery. It signals emotional control, limits manipulation, and exposes insecurities in those who depend on constant validation. In a world obsessed with noise, silence has become increasingly rare, and rare things naturally command attention, which is why the people who speak the least are often the ones others watch the most. Because real power does not always announce itself. Sometimes, it simply remains silent.